Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to Richar with the reactions. So today we're going to look at something from Overly Sarcastic Productions. Thoth Gambles with the Moon. Now I had to look up that name and how to say it, so I hope I'm saying it right. And I don't know what bet is so enticing that you would put up the moon, but we're about to watch and find out. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let's dive on in.
You know those deliberately unsatisfying videos where it looks like something's set up to be absolutely flawless, but then something misses by inches and the whole thing falls apart? The lunisolar
Yeah.
calendar is like that. It should be a beautiful, perfect system of wheels within wheels, pleasingly regular orbits with completely predictable outcomes. And it kind of is, but the problem is the lunar month, aka the time it takes the moon to fully orbit the Earth, is 30 days, and the solar year, the time it takes the Earth to fully orbit the Sun, is 365 days, which means 12 lunar months is 5 days short of a solar year. That's already annoying enough. If you measure your years by the moon, which is extremely convenient due to its phase visibly changing every day, within 6 years the sun is a whole lunar cycle off position, which has a noticeable impact on seasonal weather. If you measure your years by the sun, which is a little more difficult unless you're really paying attention to the position of the stars, the seasons might stay consistent, but the lunar cycle is 5 days offset and you can't use full moons to demarcate the months anymore. And it gets worse. Technically, those cyclic lengths are only approximations. Our day length isn't some celestial unit inscribed on the heavens that the sun and the moon adhere to. It's just how fast the Earth spins. There's no reason the moon would orbit exactly 30 times slower than the Earth turns. So technically, a solar year is actually 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. And a lunar month is 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 2.9 seconds. There's no way to get those perfectly lined up, and any calendar that's based on whole days as its smallest unit, which is all of them, will inevitably have to account for rounding errors within a few short years. This betrayal of modular arithmetic hurts my soul, and single-handedly convinced me that if there is a creator god responsible for the turning of the celestial spheres, they're a real asshole. Now, while almost every culture has its own way of reckoning the calendar, almost all of them have accounted for this discrepancy in one way or another. Ancient Babylon favored lunar months for reckoning time and made up the time slip with an intercalary month added every once in a while, roughly 7 times every 19 years, to make up the missing time so the calendar stayed in rough alignment with the observed seasons. The Hebrew calendar started off very similar to the Babylonian one, but was replaced with a calculated calendar rather than an observational one over the course of the first millennium CE, which got pretty solidly locked in by our boy Maimonides in 1178 CE. The Mayan calendar combined a 365-day solar year with a much more important 260-day cycle of 13 20-day units called the Tzolk'in that doesn't have a
It's
clear
interesting
astronomical
how
origin,
every
but does make
civilization,
scholars
or at
argue a lot,
least
which is
some
always
of
fun.
them,
And then there's the
notice
ancient
the
Egyptians, who created
discrepancies,
a
you know?
civil calendar sometime around 2000
I don't think I would
BCE
have
by
noticed the
rather ergonomically
discrepancies
supplementing their 12
if
lunar
I had
months with a
created the
5-day
calendar.
intercalary period to make sure every year lined up with a 365-day solar cycle. These 5 days rounded off the year and were seen as the birthdays of several major gods, and that's the kind of concept that definitely has a myth attached, right? Like, come on, that's a golden opportunity. So today let's talk about how those oh-so-convenient 5 bonus days got tacked onto the calendar and rounded everything off nicely, except for leap years, but they didn't do those, so shush. So, this story is recounted by Greek historian, philosopher, and priest of Apollo Plutarch in his Moralia, written around 100 AD, in a section that is specifically about Plutarch's impression of Egyptian culture, their religious practices, and their gods. And while we're going to be discussing the Egyptian gods he was clearly talking about, it is important to note that Plutarch went out of his way to localize his story by assigning corresponding Greek gods to several Egyptian gods in this tale. It was a popular form of syncretism around this time to basically claim that other cultures with other gods were really just worshipping the Greek gods, but, like, wrong. So in this story, Thoth gets cast as Hermes, Set is regularly referred to as Typhon, primordial earth and sky gods Geb and Nut are called Cronus and Rhea, Ra gets downgraded to just the sun, and Nephthys is briefly called Aphrodite, who is then described as consorting with Typhon, which I don't think is supported in the Greek version, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. So our story begins with the sun god Ra pissed off. This isn't a strictly uncommon occurrence, but this particular fit of pique is the result of sky goddess Nut and earth god Geb boning down. It's not entirely clear why this bugs him so much, but whatever the reason, Ra lays down an official heavenly decree that Nut cannot give birth any day of the year. Yep, all 360 of them are strictly off limits. This is a bummer for a lot of reasons, and Thoth, god of wisdom and disordered smart guy things, decides to help her
I
out.
said it
So
right
he
there.
gambles with Khonshu the moon god on Games of Senate and absolutely smokes him, winning a small fraction of his total moonlight, about 1/70th. Now the moon is totally dark only once a lunar cycle, once every 30 days, and 12 times every 360 days. So if you divide up the 348 days when the moon is actually visible, 1/70th is almost exactly 5 days. So Thoth takes his winnings and uses them to expand the calendar, appending his 5 new days to the 360 that are already there. These days are, of course, outside the parameters of Ra's initial curse, and Newt is free to have as many babies as she wants. She proceeds to do just that, popping out Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys in quick succession, rounding out the Great Aeneid in one fell swoop, and as a happy consequence, perfectly smoothing out the observed solar year. Except that, they didn't do leap days, and because this intercalary period was so deeply religiously significant that the idea of adding a leap day was politically and religiously controversial and was actively shot down when they tried it in the 200s BCE, so the whole calendar year very slowly slipped out of alignment with the actual solar year and the observed seasons. But look, it's fine, okay? Sometimes reading the precise mathematical turnings of the celestial spheres is just a little more art than science. 525,600.
Turns out the calendars are stupid. Rabbit hole goes much deeper than those childish considerations. Calendars determined by their
525,000 moments so dear.
Oh, this is a song from Rent. I know this one.
525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year?
So I realized in the story that Red is saying Thoth and not Thoth. So I think I got my pronunciation wrong. But nevertheless, this was a good video. The idea is that he added more time on the calendar so that Newt could have more kids. My only question is, why was Ra so angry about that? Was it because Newt and him were together? Or is there some other reason I'm not thinking about? If you guys know, feel free to tell me in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this video down in the comments below. And that's today's video. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.